Welcome to another edition of Living Legacies. I'm Tom Morrow, your host, and today my guest is the 1933 champion of the Los Angeles Open marble shooting contest. Welcome, Jerry Stapp. Jerry's an old friend of mine and longtime Oceanside resident, and we'll talk about that marble shooting championship a little bit later. But you were born in Los Angeles. You're a fifth generation Californian?
California.
You were born in 1929 or 24. I'm trying to make you younger, Jerry.
I'd like to make the other, but it's 24.
1924 in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yes.
And we've got a picture of you and your mom and brothers and sisters here. This is you're the littlest one there with the curly hair, right, and with his hands in front.
The innocent one, though.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're about 5 years old there.
Yes.
So that's about taken about 1929, and Mom raised all four of you kids by herself.
That's right.
It was a tough time then. It was during the Depression, and
very tough, very tough. And she making $20 a week. She worked for Hershey, by the way, chocolate, and $20 a week, and she raised 4 children.
Did she get to bring any of that Hershey's home?
No, they were very careful about that.
Is that right?
I used to go down to the alley outside the factory, and all they do is pat my head and say pretty curls and things like that, but I never got any chocolate.
No chocolate. You, okay, we're up to 1933. You lived right across the street from the Coliseum?
Yes.
And it was brand new then. It was built in 32 for the 32 Olympics?
I was there. We were living there in the 32 Olympics, and I did see the Olympics.
I'll bet you didn't pay to get in, did you?
No, I'm afraid not. I jumped the fence and scaled the, we all go to the Coliseum now. I scaled the wall going up and jumped on over and got mixed up with the crowd.
You knew how to do that as a kid, huh?
Well, I walked many times up the staircase to the Coliseum now, and I look at that big wall and I said, it scares me now, I'll tell you that.
Well, tell me about this marble shooting contest.
Oh. Took all summer vacation for a process of elimination, and it was all ages, and it was in Exposition Park. And I think
which is right across the street from the Coliseum?
Yes, And I think the great thing, unbelievable thing about all that is it shows you what like so-called ignorance is bliss. They had the finals in the office in there, which was the ping pong table and where they played ping pong and stuff like that and had their meetings. It was hardwood floor, and they made a circle out of the center of the hardwood floor, and the playoff was on that floor, hardwood floor, and
well, that
it's
just almost
impossible.
seems, I was going to say it's almost.
It is.
You got to be
impossible.
outside.
But I'm 9 years old, and I didn't know that doesn't everyone do this? Yeah, so it was quite interesting. And if you just missed it all, I mean, if your shooter did not stay in the same spot as the marble you hit, it would scoot clear across the room and hit the wall, and it was unbelievable. I've told that story several times, and everyone says it's impossible. Well, at that day it was impossible, but
you did it.
I didn't know the difference.
Well, for the younger folks, shooting marbles in those days, in the 30s and 40s, that was a big deal.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that was what guys did after school.
Absolutely.
We didn't let the girls do too much of that, did they?
No.
Unless they had their own marbles.
I used to play. I've got an agate collection at home right now, a jar full of them. And I never could afford to buy an agate. They were selling for 35 cents and 75 cents and sometimes $1. And so I put up as much as 5,000 marbles against an agate. You put the agate in the center of the circle, and whatever you figured that agate was worth, I put up 1,000 marbles against the agate, or 5,000 I did one time. And whatever you get out of there is yours.
Well,
so
you didn't have money in those days. You had marbles. That was the choice of bartering.
So every agate I got, I still have, by the way. I don't know what I have, 100 and some agates, I guess. And it's just unbelievable that.
Did you have a Steely?
No.
You didn't have a steel.
Oh no. That might damage my agates. I don't.
Now
Yeah.
you went to Dorsey High School.
That's correct.
Now that, if I remember right, it was new when you went there, wasn't it? It hadn't been open very long.
If I had graduated from there, I went in the service instead. But if I had graduated from there, I'd have been the first 3-year, graduate.
Well, there are a couple of other well-known people in this town that did graduate from Dorsey High, and were they ahead of you? Yeah, Lois and Len Gardner.
Right.
Were they ahead of you, or the same class, or?
I don't know whether to tell you, but they were a year ahead of me.
Oh yeah, they'll love that.
Yeah.
And this was you played football for Dorsey.
I played on the first football championship team that Dorsey ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And also I played. I wanted to be a ball player, baseball player.
That was your favorite sport.
That was my real incentive. Not. I made all city on shortstop for baseball, and there was so many things that I played on the the so-called leagues that teams. We didn't have different. We just had different teams out there. And I had 3 contracts from the West Coast League.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ball boy for the Los Angeles Angels in Old Wrigley Field in Los Angeles. And really wonderful experiences there, because they had the so-called all-star game from the East Coast, which was the big leagues, in the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
They had an all-star game there every once a year.
Did you get to see some of the?
DiMaggio and all of them were there, and I'm the ball boy during that time, and that was a marvelous time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Of course, that was a big deal, you know.
What did you get? You still got any of those autographs?
I never got any. I was very shy and very timid, and it's hard to believe, but it's true.
The guy that climbed the wall up the Coliseum, you were very shy. Well, you were telling me that you used to walk all the way from central Los Angeles down to Long Beach to the beach.
Not to Long Beach, to Manhattan
Beach
and Santa Monica.
And that's about what, 12 miles?
About 12 miles, and I used to walk both ways, and people would stop to pick me up, and I just said thank you, but I'm just going a short distance, and I don't need any help. And that was the way. I think that comes from being raised with how we were raised.
Mm-hmm.
And having more or less nothing, actually, except there again, we were going, ignorance is bliss. I didn't know that we were poor. And,
well, now you worked while you were in high school?
Oh yeah. I always had it. I started working when I was 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And
what kind of jobs
the
did you
year
have?
I made All City, I think, is very interesting. Is I made All City in baseball and football, and I worked 3 nights a week. From 6 in the evening till 6 in the morning, and got off at 6 in the morning and went home and cleaned up and went right to school with no sleep. And I made All City and also a championship football team.
When did you sleep?
Huh?
When did you sleep?
In class.
Now this is a donut shop you worked at?
Yeah. Made donuts, and also I worked the front end where the counter was and sold donuts.
Whereabouts in Los Angeles? What was?
Right on Adams. Off of Vermont.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to run out of time like we did with LC if we don't move on. Now I've got a picture here of you with some of your Army buddies.
Oh,
you
yeah.
joined the service in what, 1940, 41?
No, 43. First to 43.
And this was you were in the infantry.
Armored infantry. That's right.
And now you jumped the gun and joined the service before you graduated.
That's right.
And what you went to training where?
My basic was in Fort Knox, which was all armored outfits. Always went to Fort Knox,
Kentucky.
From there, I went to a little one-building town in Arizona called Baus, Arizona, which is just right outside of Parker, by the way. But and we were about 19 miles inland. in a valley we call Happy Valley, and that's where our training was.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
At that time. Well, it still is.
Worse than nowhere. Yeah, I think it's still nowhere.
Well, the thing that now this picture of you and your buddies, where was that taken? Was that in Europe?
Oh yes, this is during the war.
Well, what some people may not know is you went ashore on D-Day
Yes.
on Utah Beach.
Utah Beach.
And as you like to say, you were commander of a half track, and you didn't get your feet wet. You rode in on the half track.
Yeah, I had. I was a squad leader at that time, and I was at a 50 caliber machine gun mounted over my seat, and the squad walked behind the track, and we pulled right off a landing barge and went on the sand, and I didn't get my feet wet.
That was a pretty rough scene, though.
Yeah, yes, it was. It was.
Well, now
Interesting. I think that all these things that we're talking about today is very interesting because I never fired a gun, never looked at a gun, all the time I was growing up.
Before you got into service.
But I remember my training sergeant told me that if I learned how to use that gun, I was as good as any man in the world. And so I dedicated myself to knowing how to use a gun.
Good. Do you saw quite a few, shall we say, well-known or famous campaigns. You were at St. Lo.
Oh yeah.
San Lo. How were they?
Ranches and all the hedgerows. went through there, and
of course the Battle of the Bulge was the big.
Yes.
That was
later on, naturally, you know, but you know, we talk about time. That's only, what, 6 months later is the Battle of the Bulge. So actually, between D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge was not that big of a period of time, you know.
Did you get into Paris? Between D-Day and...
yeah, but I was on the outskirts of Paris when it was made a free city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to get through the war and on into the work that you did after the war. But before we leave the war, you were the Battle of the Bulge. You were right there at the end, right by where they had a fuel dump. That if the Germans got to it, the Battle of the Bulge might have turned out much differently.
A little town called Stavelot.
Mm-hmm.
And my squad was the first stop that we put up a roadblock, and for the first SS Panzer Division, which was the spearhead.
Mm-hmm.
It came out of the north end of the attack, and we hit them there with light machine guns and things like that. We didn't have anything to slow them down or stop, but they went through us, and we just got out of the way. But
they ran out of gas before they got to there.
Yeah.
And that really turned the tide of the war, didn't it?
Yes. I set fire to an awful lot of. They used to put those jerry cans with gasoline tank, 5-gallon tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And they put 1,000 stacks of these gas tanks, and then another every 300 yards, they put another 1,000 tanks. This went on for both sides of the road, and I set those afire, and well, it just we were lost down there. I was down there for 10 days in the middle of. Germans were just on the whole area was covered by Germans, and everyone left us. There was only 28 of us left, by the way, and we were down there for 10 days, and finally the 101st and the 30th Infantry Division came in and relieved. I'm not going to say relieved us, because we were hiding out more than anything else, you know.
Just trying to stay alive.
But I think it's interesting too. P-47s, radio. When the weather finally cleared, I was on one side of the valley, and there's a river that split the town on a big valley, and I was on one side of the high ground and watching the two P-54s. two P-47s came by and strafed and bombed the Germans on the other side. That was an interesting thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's leave the war and get on. After the war, you spent some time in Long Beach,
Yes.
working in the bar industry.
I went into the bars and.
How did you get to Las Vegas? Because I know you spent some time in Las Vegas.
Well, I moved from Long Beach to Colorado, and spent 4.5 years there, and then I moved to.
Now you had an upper
yeah.
class restaurant in Littleton.
I was a manager and part owner of a dinner house there that we served Eisenhower's first party after election.
1953.
And yeah.
52. Yeah.
Very interesting there. I think there's so many stories to tell about that. Just.
Well, this picture I have here of you, this is the opening of the Riviera in 1954.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's you back there looking at that beautiful blonde. Yeah, and of course it's not important who these other people are because they're not from around here.
No.
But this other picture I have of you with the staff. Now that's you on the.
That's it. Yes, that's the Patio LeMay's, by the way.
This is the restaurant in Littleton.
That was the first. We call them colored in those days. I don't know what you call them, but it was the first colored staff in the history of the state of Colorado.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, very unusual.
And when you say that, they get to be the chefs and the waiters and that sort of thing.
Well, my chef was not outside of that. The dining room and the kitchen backup area was all blacks. So.
But in those days, they were just kind of relegated to being bus boys.
Very touchy thing in those days, and
yeah,
the only reason we used them and trained them, I had to train them because of the all the big hotels downtown Denver, Colorado, or the Brown Palace and all those places. They used up all the waiters, so we had to get our own waiters, and so consequently we did.
Now you're in Oceanside. What year did you come to Oceanside?
Around 57.
57, and you were managing the old AlkaPoco?
No,
the restaurant.
I moved to the ranch and farm out in the valley, San Luis Rey, right next door. So Rancho San Geronimo, and it was next door, surrounded by Guajome.
Is there anything that you haven't done?
No, I don't think so.
You've been a marble champion. You were a farmer. You were a half-track commander, and now
CIC, Counterintelligence Corps.
Now, how did you get into Jerry's Club, Jerry's Place, the card room?
I bought the card room, built Bolton's Casino downtown Oceanside. I bought the casino there, and that was part of the section where the city tore all the buildings down, all the businesses down, and eventually I ended up in Jerry's Place on Oceanside Boulevard.
Did you build that place, or was that already there, the building?
There was a restaurant and bar there at the time.
Well, I need to go back just a little bit. You did manage the AlkaPoco for a while, didn't you?
I owned it.
You owned the
yeah.
When it was Mexican.
12, 13 years.
You owned it that long?
Yes.
So you've been around this stuff for a long time.
Yes, I have. Sure have.
And I have to say, we're running out of time, but I have to say that you were one of Oceanside's greatest fundraisers for a number of things. You were very active, probably still are active in the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, absolutely. Over 30 years I've been with the Boys and
Now,
Girls
this picture
Club.
of you, and this is Marilyn Adamson.
Evelyn Hall Adams. She was the. She had the photo finish with the old Babe during the Olympics, in the 60-yard
Babe
hurdles.
Saharius.
Yeah.
And Babe Dietrichson, did she win?
Well,
or was it a tie? Or
they gave it to the Babe because they needed an extra gold medal, but I believe she won.
Okay, all right. Now, what year was this? This was 19.
Well, this here is that was 84.
84. Okay.
I ran the torch, the Olympic torch there.
And okay, and this is a picture of you and Bill Craven.
Oh yes. I met Bill Craven when at the El Camino Country Club the first year that it opened up.
Well, here's a familiar face. This is a picture of you tasting some wine with Senator John Glenn.
John Glenn.
And was that the year that he was running for president?
No, that was prior to that. I've known the senator there many years. That was in Beverly Hills. That was taken in Beverly Hills, by the way.
Well, all of the things that you've been involved with over the years, Jerry, because we're almost out of time. What to me is, or what to you is the most satisfying thing you've done here in Oceanside?
Oh, in Oceanside?
Yeah. Now let's don't. You got too many places and too much of a life.
I don't know. I've enjoyed and really enjoyed the Boys and Girls Club there, and all the sundowners I put on, all the fundraisers. I did a Rotarian of the Year, by the way, and the Business Person of the Year. But also I did the golf tournaments for the Rotary Club, International, and the money went to the hospice. And I don't have to tell you about a hospice. It's just a phenomenal organization, and I've had so much pleasure doing all these things. And the sundowners that I put on for the Boys and Girls Club in Oceanside, they're still the biggest that's ever been done. 750 people, and I've done 4 or 5 of those down there.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of young adults in Oceanside today that remember when they were kids, and you helped the club.
Absolutely.
Well, we're out of time. Darn it, we could have spent a whole hour just talking about World War II, because you got out as a sergeant and
Staff sergeant, platoon sergeant,
and had a few medals.
Yeah, I think the most important one, as far as I was concerned, is that I had 5 battle stars, which is all they had in Europe. Yeah, European campaigns. I had 5 of them, and I think the most impressive thing that to me, deep down, it was the combat infantry badge, which is you only receive one of those if you've seen combat direct line and been there more than 30 days up front.
And there were a lot of those given out during World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were.
Okay, Jerry, thank you very much for coming in. I'm sorry we didn't get more of your life told, but you know, that 25 minutes goes real fast.
Yeah, it certainly does.
I hope that you've enjoyed this edition of Living Legacies with Jerry Stapp, the 1933 Open marble shooting champion of Los Angeles. I'm Tom Morrow. I hope you enjoyed this show. Join us next time on Living Legacies. This program is made possible through the generous underwriting grants of Hatter Williams and Purdy Insurance Services of Oceanside, providing North County with complete insurance needs for more than half a century. The TriQuest Corporation, providing quality office and manufacturing space in Oceanside. And the North County Times, serving all of North County with complete local daily news coverage and internet services.